The apartment smelled faintly of linseed oil, old paint, and stillness. Nicolette Arden, known to no one now as Nix, had learned how to disappear inside its 4 decaying walls. Time didn't pass here, not really, it pooled, settled into corners like dust. A clock ticked somewhere behind her fridge, but it wasn't a keeper of rhythm. More like a reminder of a world she'd stopped trying to belong to. A single window overlooked the alley below. Its glass was warped, distorted the outside world into hazy shapes, passers-by with bowed heads, the occasional cat prowling along a fire escape, neon signs blinking promises for a life that wasn't hers. The curtains had long been removed. If anyone looked up, they'd see the flickering candlelight, catch glimpses of canvases in progress. But no one ever looked up. Nix didn't leave often. When she did, it was like shedding skin, putting on gloves to cover the fused fingers of her left hand, a hood to hide the scars that clawed up the side of her neck and cheek. She moved quickly, like a ghost that didn't want to be seen. Not because she feared the world, but because the world had made it clear it didn't want her. 5 years ago, she'd been someone else. A university student with sketchbooks full of sunlight, a laugh that took up space in rooms. Then the fire. A freak accident in the art building. No one's fault, and everyone's. The flames stole everything, her nerve endings, the flexibility in her dominant hand, the self who once smiled easily at strangers. What remained was paint and silence. She sold her work through Olga, a gruff vendor who set up every weekend at Rose Alley Market. Nix never used her full name. Just a symbol in the corner of each canvas, a small, imperfect circle, broken on one side. Like a cracked moon, Olga once said. Your work always looks like it's remembering something painful. Nix hadn't responded. That Saturday morning, light poured through the window like diluted honey. Her latest painting leaned half-finished against the easel, a rooftop at dusk, 2 figures seated apart but reaching toward the same piece of sky. Her detail brush had finally frayed to uselessness. She tried another, but it scratched instead of danced. Her good hand twitched with frustration. She had to go out. The market buzzed with life as soon as she turned the corner, buskers strumming guitars, children weaving through legs, the smell of fried food floating above stalls. Nix kept to the edges, heart thumping beneath her oversized jacket. People didn't mean to be cruel, she knew. It was instinct. A glance that lingered too long. A child's innocent gasp. A whisper, what happened to her? The art supply booth sat tucked near the end, beside a modest flower cart she usually avoided. Too bright. Too open. But today, the brushes were hanging from the opposite rack, closest to the flowers. She stepped up, picked through the selection, tried to stay invisible. Hey there, a voice said, startling her. Haven't seen you before. Nix looked up instinctively. The man behind the flower stall had a smile that felt unguarded. Not sales pitch friendly or overbright. Just warm. He was placing a bundle of tulips into a copper tin, sleeves rolled up, hands dusted with pollen. She turned her head slightly, hood shifting. I don't come out much. Makes 2 of us, he said. I only show up when my sister drags me here. She owns the shop. I'm just free labor. His tone was light, almost self-deprecating. Oh, Nick said, unsure why she was still standing there. Usually by now, she would have mumbled a thanks, paid, and vanished. He offered his hand out, then paused. Right, I'm Silas. No pressure to shake. Flower guy, part-time hermit, bad at small talk. Nix blinked. Something about his ease, how it didn't force anything, softened the knot in her chest. She nodded, not shaking his hand but not retreating either. Nix. His eyebrows rose. Cool name. Short for anything. Just short, she lied. She never gave her full name anymore. He looked at her bundle of brushes. You paint? A little. Ha, he said, thoughtfully. Olga mentioned she sells work for someone anonymous. Dreamy rooftops, shadowed cities, lots of emotional weather. That you? Nick stiffened. Maybe. They're really good, he said simply. Not fake good, like the way people compliment kids' drawings. Real. Kind of haunting, but in a way that stays with you. Nix wasn't used to praise, especially from strangers. Her stomach twisted with suspicion, then something closer to gratitude. Thanks, she muttered. I like rooftops too, Silas added. Best place to be alone, but still feel the world breathing. She wasn't sure how to respond to that. It sounded like something she'd think, not say aloud. You ever want to trade? He asked. A painting for a bouquet? She blinked. I don't need flowers. No one needs them, he said. But they're nice. Something beautiful for your windowsill. Her eyes narrowed, uncertain. People didn't offer her things. They avoided her, pitted her, sometimes pretended not to see her at all. But Silas didn't look away. Not at her scars, not when her glove slipped and revealed her disfigured fingers. He just smiled again. Think about it. Nix painted late that night. Not rooftops this time, but the stall. Buckets of sunflowers, hands arranging petals, and in the center, a quiet smile. She didn't intend to include Silas, but somehow, his presence emerged in the color. Steady, warm, unexpected. She signed this one. The cracked circle, but this time, closed with a gold streak through the break. On Sunday, she returned. He was there again, whistling as he trimmed stems. You came back, he said, grinning. I brought something. She held out the canvas. His face lit up slowly as he unwrapped it. This is for me. A trade, she said. Like you offered. He stared at it. Then at her. This is, damn. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. But he did anyway. You painted me nicer than I look, he said, teasing. I painted how you felt, she corrected. Silas looked at her then, for a long moment, the noise of the market fading. Coffee? He asked. After the market closes? There's a cafe down the block. Quiet. Big chairs. Good pastries. Nix's breath caught. I can't. Why not? She looked down at her hand. People stare. He didn't respond right away. Then slowly, he reached out and gently touched her glove. Let them, he said. I'll be the one looking at you like your art. Tears pricked the corners of her eyes. She hadn't cried in years. Hadn't wanted to. She nodded. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and milk. They sat by the window, sunlight dappling through sheer curtains. Silas ordered a cinnamon roll and 2 teas, no questions asked. They talked. Not small talk, real things. He told her about dropping out of culinary school to help his sister run the shop. How he'd once been in love with someone who left when things got hard. Nix told him about color. How certain blues carried sorrow, how she used burnt sienna when she missed her old self. She didn't mention the fire. Not yet. But she didn't have to. Silas didn't ask. He never asked how she got the scars. Never pried. He listened. And that, to Nix, was more intimate than touch. Weeks passed. She visited more often. Brought him small canvases, a field of wildflowers under moonlight, a bench where 2 silhouettes sat apart but connected by shadow. He gave her lilies, daffodils, soft bundles of forget-me-nots. He never asked her to explain the paintings. He just saw them. One rainy Thursday, he found her waiting under his stall's awning. Soaked, hood dripping, hands trembling. I had a bad morning, she said. Silas didn't ask what happened. He opened his arms. Nick stepped into them. He was warm and real and didn't flinch when her skin pressed against his. He just held her tighter. That night, she stayed. Not in the way that people stay to forget. But in the way people stay to be remembered. Silas made chamomile tea. She told him about the fire. The night her life split in half. The smell of burning paint. Waking in the hospital, half of her body wrapped like a mummy. The friends who stopped visiting. The boyfriend who ghosted. The scholarships revoked. I didn't know how to come back, she whispered. He reached over and took her ruined hand in both of his. Then don't come back, he said. Build something new. And so she did. But not alone. The laundromat was the same as it had always been, dull blue walls, rows of machines humming with mechanical indifference, the faint scent of detergent clinging to the air like regret. Simon Adele sat on the hard plastic bench beside dryer number 5, notebook balanced on his knee, pen hovering over the same blank page he'd been staring at for 20 minutes. He came here every Thursday at 8 p.m. Not because he loved clean clothes. Because it was the only place left where the world didn't ask anything of him. Outside, the world was too loud, too fast, too full of what he'd lost. Once, he'd been someone. Mr. Adele, the music teacher with the easy laugh and the upright piano students gathered around like birds on a wire. That life had ended exactly 1 year ago, the day he buried the man he was supposed to marry. Emery had been everything Simon wasn't, bold, chaotic, quick to dance in the street or kiss him in public. He'd loved like a wildfire. And he'd died like one too, suddenly, without warning, in a car crash that left Simon sitting alone in a funeral chapel, fingers clasped around a ring that would never be worn. After that, music turned quiet. His apartment filled with silence. And the world moved on without him. But the laundromat stayed the same. Machines spun. Coins clinked. Strangers came and went without notice. It was a place where anonymity was allowed. Expected. So when Simon found the note, he almost didn't read it. It had been tucked into an abandoned book on the communal shelf, a slim volume of poetry with a cracked spine. Simon had reached for it absent-mindedly while waiting for his spin cycle to finish. The note fluttered out, landing near his feet. Just a scrap of paper. In messy, slanted handwriting. I like this place. The machines hum like lullabies. I pretend they're singing for me. Simon stared at the words. Something about them stuck. Not just the content, but the quiet bravery of leaving it behind, like a message in a bottle tossed into the sea. He flipped the paper over. Nothing on the back. He looked around. Only 2 other people in the laundromat, an elderly man asleep in a corner, and a teenage girl scrolling on her phone. Neither seemed the type. He slipped the note into his pocket. The next Thursday, he returned. Same bench. Same machine. Same hour. He brought a pen. This time, he wrote back. I never thought of the machines as lullabies. More like background static. But maybe that's what lullabies are. He folded the note, placed it between pages 17 and 18 of the poetry book, and returned it to the shelf. He told himself not to expect anything. And yet, when he came back the next week, his hands trembled a little. He flipped to the marked page. Another note had replaced his. Static is a kind of music too. Just a different kind. Maybe that's what grief sounds like. Simon exhaled shakily. He hadn't said anything about grief. But somehow, they knew. The notes became a ritual. He didn't know who the other person was. Just that they came sometime between Thursday night and the following week. Always replying. Always thoughtful. Sometimes sad. Sometimes funny. They never signed a name. He didn't either. But over time, the conversation deepened. Do you believe people come back? Not ghosts, just echoes. In smells, or songs. I heard someone laugh today and for a second I thought it was him. I think echoes are real. Not supernatural, just emotional. Our memories leaking into the world around us. I hear him in certain chords. In B minor. In silence. I used to sing in the car. Now I can't. The silence feels too loud. Try humming. Just to yourself. Just to remember your voice. He started humming. Softly. In the shower. While folding shirts. The first time he caught himself doing it in public, quietly, under his breath while waiting in line at the coffee shop, he almost cried. He'd forgotten what it felt like to be more than just broken. The notes were healing him. Not with advice. Not with clichés. Just with presence. Acknowledgement. Someone else, out there, who understood what it meant to sit in a laundromat and wait for time to pass without pain. Simon began to fantasize. Who was this person? A widow? A poet? A college student grieving someone they never got to say goodbye to? He tried to guess their handwriting, rushed, but graceful. Someone who felt deeply but didn't speak easily. Maybe shy. Maybe tired of being misunderstood. He imagined them reading his notes with the same cautious reverence. Imagined them feeling seen. He imagined their hands brushing against the spine of the book as they tucked another secret inside. And then he stopped imagining and wrote something real. I lost someone. Over a year ago. I haven't said that out loud to anyone in months. But you make it feel safe. Thank you. The next week's reply came with a tear in the page. Like they'd hesitated. Ripped it out of something private. I lost her 3 years ago. My twin. She died in a fire and I walked away. I haven't played the piano since. But your words made me want to touch the keys again. Simon stared at the note for a long time. He didn't know what he expected. But not that. A musician. Like him. And suddenly, he wanted to hear her play. He wanted to find her in a crowd and recognize her by the weight she carried in her shoulders. By the sound of her silence. He wanted to meet her. But the rule was, no names. No identities. The safety was in the unknown. Still, the heart wanted. So 1 week, he wrote. I'll be here next Thursday. Same time. Same machine. I'll have a blue notebook and a red scarf. If you want to say hello, say hello. If not, I'll understand. And then he waited. He arrived 5 minutes early. The scarf knotted loosely around his neck. The blue notebook opened beside him, filled with words he hadn't dared share with anyone but her. Every time the bell jingled above the door, his heart leapt. A delivery guy. A woman with a toddler. An older couple. And then, a girl. Not a girl, really. A woman in her late 20s. Dark curls pinned up messily, a canvas bag slung over her shoulder. She moved slowly. Carefully. Like someone who didn't want to take up space. She walked to the bookshelf. Her fingers hesitated. Then she pulled out the poetry book. Read the note. Looked up. Their eyes met. She didn't smile right away. Neither did he. But they saw each other. Not just with their eyes, but with everything that had come before. Every note. Every ache. Every long night spent wondering if anyone else in the world felt the same kind of emptiness. Finally, she crossed the room. Stopped in front of him. Simon, she asked, her voice low. He nodded. And you? Call me Rowan. He smiled. Hi, Rowan. She looked down at the scarf. Red looks good on you. He chuckled. You look exactly like I imagined. Messy and tired. Quiet and brave. Her eyes shimmered. You too. He gestured to the seat beside him. Want to wait for the spin cycle with me? She sat down. They didn't need to talk right away. The machines hummed around them. Not lullabies anymore. Not static. Just music, in a different key. The wall was 30 feet wide, old brick mottled with age, sun-bleached graffiti half-scrubbed and long forgotten. It faced the park like a guardian too weary to stand proud. Lenora Vale stood before it, a crate of paint at her feet, fingers twitching inside fingerless gloves. This would be her canvas for the next 6 weeks. This tired, wounded wall, and she already loved it. She pressed a hand to its cool surface. Closed her eyes. Not because she was praying. But because sound meant nothing to her now. She hadn't heard a bird call in 12 years. Hadn't felt the hum of her own voice since a fever in childhood robbed her of both hearing and, slowly, speech. She didn't mourn it anymore. Instead, she found language in motion, in expression, in color. Her art didn't need sound to speak. Her phone vibrated. A text from an organization rep: Park mural project starts today. We'll bring supplies plus volunteers by noon. Let us know if you need anything. She tucked the phone away. She didn't need much. Just paint. And space. But as the sun climbed, the space began to fill. A truck arrived. A folding table appeared. People. Voices, muted to her. She greeted them with nods, a few written signs, and gestures practiced over years. Some people stumbled through awkward communication. Others smiled and stepped back. Lenora didn't mind. She liked solitude. But then he arrived. He moved like someone who used to be reckless and had learned, the hard way, to be gentle. Rafi Solano wore an old hoodie splattered with paint and jeans that had seen better days. His dark curls were pulled into a loose knot at the nape of his neck, and his hands looked like they hadn't been idle in years, battered knuckles, ink stains under the nails. He didn't speak when he first approached her. He just raised a hand in greeting. Then pointed to a stack of empty crates and lifted his eyebrows. Want help? She nodded. For the next half hour, they worked in a strange, easy silence. The kind where you didn't need music or words to fill the space. He carried, she unpacked. He set up a scaffold, she sorted brushes. At one point, she glanced over to find him sketching a chalk line across the wall's midsection. His posture careful, precise. Not just a helper. An artist. She tapped his shoulder. Held up her phone with a note typed on the screen. You've done this before. He read it. Smiled. Then he pulled a notebook from his back pocket and wrote. Used to be a muralist. Before my wife passed. Haven't painted since. Thought maybe it was time to try again. Lenora blinked. He met her gaze steadily. There was no sadness in his eyes. Not exactly. More like, a kind of quiet remembering. She took his notebook. I haven't spoken in years. But I think color does the talking better than I ever could. He chuckled, silent to her, but warm in his eyes. Then we'll let the wall speak for both of us. They returned every day. Lenora painted with wide strokes and soft edges. She used colors like poetry, deep cerulean for comfort, sun-faded amber for memory. Rafi followed her lead. He filled in shadows, structured edges, softened the space where sky met rooftop. They never exchanged phone numbers. Never asked for names until the third week, when she finally pointed to herself and signed, Lenora. He smiled. Tapped his chest and signed, Rafi. The wall began to change. So did she. People passing by started to stop. They didn't always understand the image forming, two children holding lanterns beneath an overgrown archway, but they felt something in it. A softness. A longing. Hope hidden inside grief. One evening, as the sky bled pink behind the trees, Lenora climbed down from the scaffold and caught Rafi staring at her. Not her face. Her hands. He wasn't watching her as a man looks at a woman. He was watching like an artist watching art come alive. She held her palms up in question. Rafi pulled out his notebook. You don't just paint. You say things. And I can't stop listening. Her throat tightened. For a long time, she believed she was too much work to understand. People didn't want to slow down enough to see what wasn't spoken aloud. But Rafi was listening. Without sound. Without rush. Just presence. On the 5th week, rain came. Not a drizzle. A full, sweeping storm. The mural had just begun its final detail, the flicker of lantern light in the children's eyes. Lenora arrived anyway, hood up, paint sealed. Rafi was already there. He was sitting on the scaffold, sketchbook on his knee. When she joined him, he passed it over. A new page. No drawing. Just words. My son's name was Lucas. He was 5 when we lost his mom. Now he's 8. He asks about her sometimes. I tell him stories in colors, not facts. I think he remembers her that way. It helps. Lenora reached for the pen. I remember my twin that way. She liked green. Wore it every day until the fever took her. I always paint her into the leaves. They didn't speak for a long time after that. The storm washed over the trees. The mural shimmered beneath the wet. They sat, side by side. She leaned into his shoulder. He didn't move away. The wall was finished by mid-March. It glowed. 2 children. One with a slingshot, the other with a lantern. Tangled ivy overhead. The hint of a hidden city in the distance. The whole thing wrapped in softness, joy and mourning braided together. At the dedication, people applauded. Took photos. Asked questions Lenora couldn't answer aloud. Rafi stood beside her, gently steering conversations when needed. When the crowd cleared, they stood alone again. She touched the part of the mural where the children's hands nearly touched. He wrote. You taught me how to listen again. She responded. You taught me that silence doesn't mean loneliness. He smiled. This time, he reached for her hand. Her real hand. No gloves. No brushes. Just skin against skin. She nodded once. Yes. That night, they didn't part ways after cleaning up. They walked the quiet city streets, her hand still in his. No need for language. The way her thumb brushed his. The way his eyes never looked away. Everything said what words could not. And when they kissed, gently, slowly, like a vow, it was not the beginning of a story. It was the answer to one. Theo Marshall hadn't meant to walk into the tea shop. He'd meant to keep walking, meant to let the storm soak him the way it had all morning. Something about the rain felt honest. Clean. Like it could wash out the panic clawing at the back of his throat. But the lightning cracked just as he passed under the green awning, and instinct, or maybe exhaustion, carried him inside. A bell jingled overhead. The shop was quiet, like stepping into a slower world. Warm wood floors, mismatched chairs, plants trailing from the ceiling. The air smelled like cinnamon and something floral he couldn't name. Soft piano music played overhead, not loud, just present. He hovered at the doorway, dripping, unsure. Then a voice called softly from behind the counter. You look like you need something warm. He looked up. The woman behind the counter had gentle eyes and a face that didn't ask anything of him. She wore a linen apron, sleeves pushed up, dark hair in a loose braid over one shoulder. Her name tag read Miko in a hand-painted script. He started, then stopped. The words were caught again. Lately, they always were. Miko didn't flinch at the silence. Didn't rush to fill it. Instead, she smiled. How about a house blend? Jasmine, rose, and honey. He nodded. She made the tea slowly, reverently, like it was a small ceremony. When she handed it to him, it came with a folded paper crane resting on the saucer. "What's this?" he asked. Her smile deepened. "I fold one for everyone. Something about tea and cranes makes people remember how to slow down." He found a quiet corner, away from the windows, and cradled the tea in both hands. It smelled like childhood memories, vague and soft. He hadn't realized how cold he was until he warmed. He didn't mean to come back. But he did. On the second visit, she remembered his name from the card he used to pay. "Theo," she said as he stepped inside. "I saved the last almond cookie for you." He blinked. "I never told you I liked almond." "You smiled last time when you bit into it," she said simply. "People don't always say what they like, but they always show it." He sat in the same chair, tucked against a bookcase filled with poetry and old recipe books. As he sipped the tea, he felt something unfamiliar, calm. "Do you own this place?" he asked after a while. "It owned me first," she replied. "I inherited it from my grandmother. Kept it because it reminded me what still matters." "Which is?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she placed a small ceramic bowl in front of him. A fresh cup of tea steeping, and at the bottom of the cup, loose leaves. "What's this?" "Reading," she said. He frowned. "Like fortune-telling?" "Not exactly." She sat across from him. "I don't believe in fate. But I believe in patterns. Sometimes what we need to see is already there. We just need help noticing." He looked at the leaves, unsure. "Try," she said softly. "What do you see?" He stared. Swirled the bowl. His mind, so often racing, went still. "A tree," he said finally. "Or maybe a road." She nodded. Trees mean grounding. Roads mean choice. What if it's both? Then maybe you're learning how to stand still and move forward at the same time. His throat tightened. He didn't answer. By the fourth visit, he'd told her about the panic attacks. Not with a dramatic speech. Just a quiet, honest confession over oolong. "They hit hard when I least expected," he said. "I was a journalist. High-pressure work. Always chasing deadlines. Then one day, I couldn't get on the train. Couldn't breathe. Just froze. Like something inside broke." She didn't offer platitudes. She just refilled his tea. "And now?" she asked. "Now, I stay inside a lot. Walk when I can. Avoid phone calls. Noise. But you came here," she said gently. "Even in a storm." He looked at her. "Maybe your heart's just learning to whisper again." Miko never pried. But she noticed everything. The way he tapped his fingers when he was anxious. How he took his tea with exactly one sugar. How he paused before answering anything personal, like he was afraid to make a wrong move. She made the space safe. And he started staying longer. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they sat in silence while the rain painted the windows and the piano played quietly in the background. Once, he asked, "Do you ever get lonely here?" She blinked. "Lonely, no, but sometimes I wish I could share more than tea." "Like what?" She hesitated. "Stories. Touch. Trust. The things people forget how to give when they're busy surviving." He understood that too well. He hadn't touched anyone meaningfully in almost a year. The first time she reached for his hand, he flinched. Not because he didn't want it. Because he did. He looked at their hands, his, pale and tense, hers, warm and steady. "You okay?" she asked softly. I think so. Then let's just stay here for a minute, she whispered. No past. No future. Just here. They sat like that for a long time. Hands clasped. Nothing rushed. Nothing broken. Miko told him once that she used to be a dancer. I stopped after my grandmother died, she said. Grief took all my rhythm. I thought maybe tea would be easier than music. But it turns out, they're the same. How? Both are made of timing, heat, and balance. He smiled. So is falling in love. She met his eyes then. Neither of them said it aloud. But they both felt it. Spring arrived slowly. The shop stayed quiet, but the colors changed. Brighter teas. Open windows. New customers. Theo came every Thursday. Sometimes more. He brought his journal again. Started writing, not articles, but little things. Memories. Haiku. Fragments of himself he thought he'd lost. One afternoon, he left her a folded note under his empty cup. You make it easier to breathe. I didn't know a heart could still thaw. Thank you for not trying to fix me. She didn't reply with words. Just another crane. This one, made from pages of a poem. On its wing, in careful ink. Some broken things still fly. On their first real date, outside the tea shop, he panicked. They were supposed to meet at the botanical gardens. Public. Open. Too open. He texted her from the parking lot, breathing fast. I'm sorry. Can't do it today. He expected silence. Instead, her reply came instantly. Okay. Want company where you are? He sat on a bench beneath a tree. 10 minutes later, she appeared. No judgment. Just her presence. She brought a thermos of jasmine tea and 2 almond cookies. They sat on the curb, sipping in silence, her hand over his. It was the kindest date of his life. Love grew, not with grand gestures, but with shared moments. Organizing the shop's back room together. Writing fortunes on paper slips to slip into customers' cups. Kissing in the quiet after she locked the door for the night. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. One night, as they cleaned up, he turned to her. Do you think I'm still broken? She paused. Then gently, I think you're healing. And healing people don't scare me. He took her face in his hands. Kissed her slow. Like gratitude. Like coming home.